You could say that creativity in the whole of nature does come from a conscious source, which could be God directly creating through conscious thought, but I think much more likely that it's delegated through different levels of nature. I mean, everything that evolves on Earth is within the field of the planet Gaia. That's within the field of the solar system. So there's always higher level systems within the field of the galaxy. There's always higher levels which may well have mind or consciousness within which creativity occurs. Thinking about consciousness in non-human forms, it seems to me, if this is generally the case, it must be to do with choosing among possible actions. In considering the consciousness of the sun, its thoughts, insofar as it's conscious, would be related to possible actions. So we have to think then, what possible actions can the sun have? And one of them is firing out solar flares or coronal mass ejections. Is doing this all the time. The internet would go down, no one would see us on YouTube, all sorts of terrible things would happen. So the sun has possible actions that it can choose among, and I imagine that that would be one of the areas its consciousness would be directed to, the whole solar system and the way in which it can modulate what's going on within the solar system, which is in a sense its extended body.
Right, and it seems to me that insofar as the sun's consciousness may be making decisions for some kind of reason, it seems to me that that reason would have something to do with something like harmony or homeostasis or something like that, like maintaining the organization of the solar system. Your conversation with Mark Vernon about gravity, it seems to me that gravity is actually not really a physical force at all. It's somehow mental. Gravity somehow has to be conditioning how things relate to one another physically, but it has to be somehow coming from this implicate order or this multi-dimensional morphogenetic space somehow. Intuitively, it seems like that's the direction this is pointing in. And I feel like it's probably the same thing with light as well. Light is very strange and spooky, and that to me seems to implicate that light is also somehow bridging between these kind of mental and physical worlds somehow, though I can't tell you exactly how I think that works, but that's the intuition anyway.
Well, I agree. I mean, these are things I think about rather a lot at the moment. That's how I got fascinated by the extended mind of the projection outward of visual images and the sense of being stared at. If there's an influence going out of the eyes in the opposite direction to light coming in, how could that conceivably work? Well, the transactional interpretation of quantum mechanics says yes, every time something comes in, there's an emission of the opposite of a photon, a positron in the opposite direction, backwards in time. If that's coupled to perception, consciousness, and awareness, then this puts us into a realm that's not far from the thoughts of Whitehead on the nature of minds. And so, I mean, this is not some kind of fringe thing that's just in kind of obscure websites.